găsit, stimați utilizatori ai portalului de știri nordnews.md. Eu sunt Nicoleta Pânzaru și vă invit să urmăriți un nou interviu marca Nordnews. De această dată vom discuta cu ambasadorul Uniunii Europene în Republica Moldova, Janis Mazeiks, despre evenimentele care s-au întâmplat și se vor întâmpla în Republica Moldova, dar și despre parcursul european al țării noastre. Good afternoon, Mr. Mazeiks. Thank you for accepting our invitation for today's interview.
Thank you for having me.
First, I want to ask, this is your second visit in the north of the Republic of Moldova, in Belt municipality. What was the purpose of this visit?
Well, we had two points which we were visiting. One was Falumzeni, which was one of the energy efficiency projects in the north of the country, where the works on the school were inaugurated together with the Speaker of the Parliament, Igor Grosu, and so we got to see the finished works, which means that the building has been better heat insulated. It looks like a new building, in fact. So solar panels, new kitchen equipment, all things that you could think of that would be energy efficient. And the second element of the visit was here in Belt, so we have already visited the business hub here, where there is a new center for supporting entrepreneurship. That is one of the 6 centers that are operating in the Republic of Moldova. So this is with the focus on support for new businesses, also for businesses created by young people, and so this is one of the programs which are supporting the business development in Republic of Moldova. And then we will be also visiting the Dexelmeyer factory.
Your Excellency, next I want to talk about the uncertain period that Republic of Moldova is going through. Period that Republic of Moldova is going through, because we all know that political opponents are trying with the FSB Russian forces to destabilize the pro-European government of Republic of Moldova. Here I want to ask you, how European partners analyze this situation and all the things that are happening now in Chisinau?
Well, depends on what exactly you mean by things happening in Chisinau, because there are several things that are going on. But in general, we are engaged very closely with the Moldovan authorities, because indeed the country is undergoing multiple crises, and all of them practically are of external nature, which means that it's not that the government had, or the Moldovan people would have done something wrong, but it is due to factors that neither the government nor the people can control, like the Russian aggression in Ukraine and the consequences thereof, including the refugees flow, or the unpredictable behavior of Gazprom, which has reduced the supply both to Moldova and to the other European consumers, which has first limited the availability of the gas here, and also has driven the prices up. So on all these issues, and we are engaged with the Moldovan government, and not just we as delegation, but the European Union in general, because on some of these issues there are dialogue on almost a daily basis, because, for instance, on the gas and electricity, the situation is sometimes developing so rapidly that these interactions are necessary on a regular basis. And of course, we are also looking at the attempts to destabilize the situation in the country, and from our side what we are doing is strengthening the resilience in more ways than one. One is the resilience of the energy sector, where the government, with our assistance, has achieved quite a lot in the last year. In fact, I would not be even comparing the situation last October with the situation this year, because the government has been much more ready than 1 year ago. Or the resilience which comes from the civil society and free media, because this is also one area which is important for us as values-driven unit.
Mr. Mazeiks, further I would like to talk about the missile or Russian rocket that flew on the north of territory of the Republic of Moldova. It was shut down by the anti-aircraft system of Ukraine. After this, as we all know, more than 26 houses of human were affected. I want you to ask, is Russia by these actions trying to intimidate us as a country? Is the tension in our region getting more and more higher?
I think, and this is basically my assumption, because of course, for getting an answer to this question, perhaps this should be addressed to the Russian authorities what they are doing. But first and foremost, this is a consequence of the illegal and unprovoked Russian war on Ukraine, because it is not just about one missile, it's about hundreds of missiles that have been launched indiscriminately on civilian infrastructure in Ukraine, in particular the energy infrastructure. And from our perspective, well, first we have been condemning the war from day one and also doing our best to prevent it from happening in the first place, and of course supporting Ukraine in this war of defense to ensure that Ukraine can survive and can emerge victorious. And this we see as a dangerous escalation from the perspective that this is the first time when the territory of independent Moldova has been so directly impacted. Of course, there was 3 overflights of the rockets prior to this, but this is a development which is very bad for the stability of the region, and that's also why the High Representative and Vice President Borrell, also in his message that he had tweeted on the missile attacks on Ukraine, was also mentioning the debris that has fallen in Moldova. So it is important that this doesn't escalate further.
Yeah, it's very important, but also, Mr. Mazeiks, on our territory we have an informational war. All of politically affiliated media are playing the game of the Kremlin and daily are making, fake news. I want here to ask, how do Europeans fight with the propaganda?
I think, well, first and foremost, it has to be done through democratic means, because you are building a democratic country, and that's also the tools that are used by other democratic countries. So I think when it comes to the media, the first and foremost role is for the Audiovisual Council, because it has the role of overseeing the content of the media, and then it is all about also what happens in the social media, because that is the area where it is much more complicated to regulate or
to identify?
Well, sometimes it is even difficult to identify, because sometimes these are closed groups. So for this, I think there are 2 different strands, but rather similar, and both of them are about building the resilience of the society. One is about supporting the independent journalists, because you are the best place to expose propaganda, disinformation, hate speech. And the other aspect, which I find also very important, is media literacy of the population in general, critical thinking, because these phenomena can exist because people don't think that much before sharing. So if people start thinking and analyzing what they are seeing, does it come from a credible source? Does it sound like something that could really happen? Is it something that I trust, that to the extent that I would be ready to share it further? I think this would be already a very important step forward. So from our side, what we are doing is also supporting the media training, the journalist education, support for the independent media, so that you have these democratic tools at your disposal to counter the disinformation and propaganda.
And to tell people the truth, actually.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Next, Mr. Ambassador, I would like to talk about political blackmail of Russia to our territory. Because of this, majority representatives from civil society, journalists, even politicians consider that Republic of Moldova needs to renounce of statute of neutrality of our country and ask for NATO membership. I want here to ask your opinion about this. How necessary first is it, and how possible is this? And there is any dialogue between European partners and authorities from Republic of Moldova according to this subject?
Well, first and foremost, these are issues that have to be discussed within the society itself. So these are the political choices of the political leaders, and these are political choices that should be based in the opinions of the population. So it is clear that now the Republic of Moldova has chosen the path of European integration. This has been very clearly communicated, first by the people's support to a pro-European party, both at the parliamentary level and prior to that to a pro-European president. So that aspect and request of Moldovan population is clear. When it comes to neutrality, it is a sovereign choice of the Moldovan people. I think it is a very legitimate debate to have, but that indeed has to happen internally, whether this is something that the society wants to maintain or change, adjust. This is not something that we would be imposing because, of course, here I am representing the European Union. At the same time, we also have the security component in our relationship, which is security dialogue. We have a high-level dialogue with the Moldovan authorities that has already happened once, and soon they will have the next meeting. And also there is, starting from this year, also the support of the European Union in the security field. So this is based on the request of the Moldovan side. So basically the equipment that the Moldovan side has wished for, and well, it's no secret that unfortunately the Moldovan armed forces have been under-equipped for a very long time. So right now these support is issues like vehicles, communications, software. So these things that armed forces would need for their normal functioning.
Mr. Ambassador, I would like to talk next about the sanctions imposed on Moldovan oligarchs Vladimir Plahotniuc and Ilan Shor by the U.S. Treasury Department. After this announcement, Vladimir Plahotniuc told that he is going to be back at to the Moldovan politics. Would such a return be possible into a democratic European country? Because however these politicians, if we can call them like that, are accused of the biggest theft in the Moldovan banking system.
At this stage, I would limit to myself to noting that the Moldovan authorities also have wanted Mr. Plahotniuc back, so I think this is primarily at this stage between the Moldovan authorities and Mr. Plahotniuc. For what is important for us is that Moldova develops as a democratic country, as you can also see in the opinion of the European Commission, which mentions several of the areas where the Moldovan authorities need to do more, including cleaning up the judiciary, including fighting corruption. So many of the ills that we have been criticizing in the past and that we hope that will not return.
Mr. Mazeiks, let's talk about good news also, because starting with November 1, the agreement between the EU and Moldova regarding the recognition of economic operators entered into force. How important is this for our country, and how also is this important for the acceleration of our country into the European family?
I think it is very important for the economic integration of Republic of Moldova in the European family, because this status is the same status that European companies would have. So those companies who have obtained this status of authorized economic operator can transport their goods to the European Union with much less time spent at customs. Which means that they can deliver their supplies in first much shorter time and second much more predictable time, because right now with the long queues it is unpredictable. So I think this is very good news for Moldova, because 2/3 of your exports are going to European Union markets, and this is also very good news for the producers for whom these things are important, because if it is, for instance, car parts, then it is important that they arrive when they are scheduled to arrive, not with 3 days delay. And I think this adds to the predictability of the relationships and also to the stability of the business opportunities.
But if you talk about the European integration of our country, 4 months have already passed since the European Council offered the statue of our country into the European family. What did the politicians from Chișinău manage to do since then? Have you observed any significant changes in the, for example, justice system, which is the most important, most strengthened problem in our society?
I think that this is very important to understand that these are changes in the justice sector that take time. So in fact we would be arguing against trying to reach those goals in a very condensed time frame, just because of the time frame, because it may be even counterproductive.
Okay.
This is an area where you have one shot to do it right, and that is why it is important that this vetting process, pre-vetting at this stage, takes place in a time frame that is necessary, but with first and foremost with the quality of the process in mind. When it comes to other issues, I think that the government has been moving very well. There has been adopted an action plan which is based on the 9 points that had been identified by the European Commission as the ones which are the key to moving to the next stage of relationship, which would be starting over the accession negotiations. So there is a detailed action plan. The authorities are working on its implementation. It is ranging on a variety of ways of reaching those elements. Sometimes, mostly it is adoption of legislation, sometimes it's implementation. So for us, both parts are important, both the adoption and the implementation, and also for the adoption of the legislation, it is important to ensure the quality so that the European standards are observed, that there is discussions with the relevant bodies, for instance, the Venice Commission, or the dialogue with the civil society when there is the interest in civil society in a particular issue. So the work is moving forward, and I think it is moving forward at quite good speed.
But if we talk about the negotiations, from the Republic of Moldova, is formed a team for the eventual negotiation for the EU, with the EU, or not?
I don't think there is a negotiation team at this stage. There is the preparations for the negotiations, but this is really the next stage for which we still need several steps on both sides, in fact, because there is also things that need to be done on the European Union side. For instance, there is going to be one document at the end of this year which will analyze in greater detail the acquis, which is a volume of the EU common legislation, analyzing how compatible currently is the Moldovan legislation, and of course that will also show another area for the Moldovan authorities to work on. And then there will be the regular progress report where Republic Moldova will be looked at together with other candidate countries, so that will come in the autumn of next year.
Mr. Mazeiks, the EU announced a new grant of 10 million euros to overcome the energy crisis in Republic of Moldova. At the same time, Russia slowly but surely limiting the gas that we so much need. If, let's imagine, if the Russia Federation completely stops the gas supplies for Republic of Moldova, what will the European Union for us in this context?
Well, first of all, the European Union already has done quite a lot in this context, and that is why you have these possibilities to having alternatives. This is a situation which is quite rapidly evolving, so part of the problem is the unpredictability of the actions of Gazprom. And therefore, I think we should not be speculating what can happen in a particular situation, but then work on the problems that we have at hand, like we have been able to do in the past weeks and months, both on gas and electricity. Also, not only European Union, but for instance, European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, which has provided a grant with which the Republic of Moldova has already purchased meaningful amounts of gas that can be used as reserves, and this provides you already a bit of a cushion when you can, in a worst case scenario, use the gas that has been accumulated while you are looking for other alternatives. And of course also it is important that the government has been thinking of other alternatives to gas. So switching some of it to mazout, so heavy fuel oil, or using also wood for heating, and very importantly, what I would see also as a sacrifice by the society, limiting the consumption, because some of the consumption we can limit easily, but some of it, of course, I realize that lowering the temperature in your house or apartment is an unpleasant thing, but I think it is very important that the society has been quite united on this, and the consumption has been reduced, and therefore also the scale of the problem has become smaller because there is less deficit than there would be otherwise. So I think this is very important that the society is also behind these measures.
Mr. Ambassador, what do you think? What does Moldova need in order to become a European country, and how do you see Moldova in 5 years?
I think that first and foremost the country needs a focus on the direction that you want to head, and a focus, and I hope that the focus would be on a European future for the country. Because right now we have a very clear determination of the government to move forward as quickly as possible, but there will be steps that will take time, and there will be steps that will need sustained efforts. It is not just part of the society who would be supportive of the European integration, but this would be seen as the goal for the whole society, as a way of reaching democracy and prosperity, the things that the Moldovans have been looking for a long time. I'm encouraged by the fact that we see it in the polls that a strong majority of the population are supportive of the European integration, and I hope that all the politicians that are responsible for the future of the country will also follow suit.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ambassador, for today's interview. We wish you success in all the European projects implemented and which are going to be implemented here in Republic of Moldova, and see you again here at Nord News.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Stimați utilizatori ai portalului de știri nordnews.md, eu vă mulțumesc că ați fost alături de noi și de această dată. Ne vedem în scurt timp aici, în studioul Nord News Live. La revedere!